than to use the correct knobs on an autopilot system, they could very well fly a plane, not having to worry about, in this case, whether they wanted to try and get it down on the ground or not, for them to have trained the individuals or the teams of individuals to be able to handle a relatively, you know, looking at the horrific pictures on the air.
No one could have ever thought that it was a commercial jet plane of that size.
And your immediate instinct, I suppose, was to get out of the building.
Yeah.
Describe the evacuation.
Well, it wasn't, because people hadn't really arrived at work yet, it wasn't very organized. We basically
Now that actually represents the second attack that happened 18 minutes after your building was struck.
Right. So when we got struck, everyone basically started running for the stairways.
Long Island is on the phone with us now. Congressman, first of all, let's get your thoughts and your reaction to the events of today.
Well,
his nose goes into, not from this angle, but you can see on another angle coming in one side and the nose literally plucking out the other. Is it possible that that's an optical illusion? Certainly. But imagine the speed at which it was flying. This airborne...
In New York and here, an act of war.
There is no question but that the attack against the United States of America today was a vicious, well-coordinated, a massive attack against the United States of America. What words the lawyers will use to characterize it is for them.
Does that mean that the U.S. is at war then?
Mr. Secretary, you said that the Pentagon would be open for business tomorrow. What kind of assurances can you give the people who work here at the building that the building will be safe?
A terrorist can attack at any time, at any place, using any technique. It is physically impossible to defend at every time, in every place, against every technique.
Capitol. Every once in a while, you'll hear the blast of F-16 fighter jets that are now circling Washington, protecting this place. It is just an extraordinary scene here. Members of Congress milling around, wanting action. We had a special prayer session just about an hour ago. Members of Congress in a security briefing ended that briefing with a prayer session. So you can imagine every emotion and every instinct is at play here.
Congressman, obviously partisanship is gone for a while, as well it should be. The President will address the people tonight to talk about what's next for us, what we should be doing. What do you think, if you were to advise the President on some of the things that he should contain in tonight's address, what would it be?
Well, in the first place, the President has to do what FDR did.
It's hard to say, but as I said before, you know, as it is, construction is very expensive, and to try and design for these types of contingencies, it just would make it so expensive that you wouldn't be able to build a building that high. Maybe that's our lesson. Maybe we build them too high.
Just when you thought the initial pictures from this horrific terrorist attack were bad enough, here is the latest video that shows the hijacked jetliner as it pierces a tower of the World Trade Center.
Then I heard a large explosion. I thought it was a sonic boom. And when I heard the explosion, I looked up, and what I saw was red, and I saw debris start to fall down. I was so close to the building that I couldn't run away from the building, so I actually had to run towards it. And if you know, the World Financial Center's got a rib design, so you actually have a 2x2 space where you can actually sneak into the building and hide. Myself and one other man were there. We had our book bags over our heads. Debris was falling down about the size of this. All portions of the building were falling down.
Shock and horror are being felt across the country now after this harrowing and horrendous day of terrorist attacks.
This, you know, it just overwhelms everything that you've designed for.
So all the safeguards that were put in, obviously, after the 1993 explosion, none of those things would have had any impact on what happened today.
No. It just was too much, and I think from what I had heard that they had taken transcontinental flights, which gave them a tremendous amount of fuel, which gave them a lot of burning power in the buildings.
Do you believe that this, and this is asking you probably a little bit too early to look way off into the future, but do you think this is going to have an impact on the people and on the construction of skyscrapers in America? Is it
get out of that second structure long before that jet plowed into the building? We have so many different camera angles of this, and we have slowed them down and looked at them very closely, and it would appear that as the jet goes into the second tower, the west
in New York, and our correspondent Stephen Evans. Stephen, we're receiving reports now of another building collapsing.
That's right, Jeremy. A third building has collapsed. We had the collapse of the two main towers about an hour after the actual explosion, which was about 9:15 in the morning. If you wanted to calculate a time to cause maximum disruption, you would calculate that time. It's the start of the working day and perhaps the biggest, busiest complex in the world. There were those two explosions. I was at the base of one of those buildings, and it literally shook. Then people fled out, fled away. One of the problems, it seems to me, is that people didn't quite know how far to go. So then the emergency services starting to arrive, and the collapse of the building happened, of one of the buildings, one of the initial buildings.
In Liberty State Park, you can see something is missing from the skyline aside from the Twin Towers, and that is lights. There appear to be no lights in any of the office buildings in downtown Manhattan. Now, this is a tragedy that has gone on for many, many hours now.
I'll bow our heads in a moment of silence and remembrance. Thank you.
New York for me, part of the skyline, and whenever I look or ride the bus over, I look, and there stands the Twin Towers, and they're gone. I can't believe that they're gone.